Max, does Brad Stevens get a pass without LeBron?
Without LeBron.
Excuse me.
Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown.
I would say he doesn't get a pass without LeBron.
Sorry, you can tell it's on my mind.
Freudian. Yes, he does get a pass without Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
And let me be very clear, Stephen A. When people like you or Kendrick Perkins start talking on TV about Brad Stevens in the locker room and stuff like that, it doesn't take a genius to read between the lines. I'm not doubting that stuff like that might be going on. But let me say this. This dude, Brad Stevens, has been in 3 of the last 4 Eastern Conference Finals. Now, this year we know what happened. Kemba Walker was hurt for a lot of the year. They had COVID, health and safety protocols that really disrupted the team. Lots of guys not playing. And then, and I keep mentioning Gordon Hayward because, Stephen A., you're like, hey, guys looking sideways, why are you playing Gordon Hayward? And I said, maybe coach needs that passing in the starting lineup. To me, it looks like he did this year. Missed Gordon Hayward. And now Jaylen Brown is down. Stephen A., they have 2 dudes who you look at and you go, well, you have those 2 guys. You should be able to do more. Tatum and Brown. And one of the guys is gone. Yeah, it's okay. Like, if they don't make a playoff run this year, he gets a pass. We understand why they didn't. Yes.
Brad Stevens does not get a pass. But before, you brought up the name Gordon Hayward. Just as an aside, he's now a member of the Charlotte Hornets, signed a lengthy new contract with the Charlotte Hornets, out for tonight's game because of a sprained foot. What the hell is going on, Gordon Hayward? What the hell is going on? He's been out for a while. Injured, really? Really? Listen, I'm being told that you got a lot of people in Charlotte who believe he can go. What's up? You got the money. You got the bag. It ain't like you're approaching free agency, bro. You're trying to play in a place. This team has collapsed over the last 10 games without Gordon Hayward. He's important to them. I mean, missing these damn games. What's up? I mean, damn. What's up? LaMelo back with the broken wrist and all. How the hell a sprained foot keeps you out this long? I'm just saying. Something that needed to be said, damn it. Okay. Now let me get to the Boston Celtics. Brad Stevens doesn't get a pass. The reason why he doesn't get a pass is because nobody is looking at him and questioning his ability to coach the team. We know he knows his X's and O's. We know he's been to 3 conference finals in the last 4 years. I am on the record. I don't believe he deserves to be fired. I like Brad Stevens. I think he's a hell of a coach. I think his record speaks for itself. And I think that there's a level of credibility that he should have, and he should be a head coach on this level. He's earned it. Having said all of that, just because you deserve a job doesn't mean you deserve that job. At some point in time, Jaylen Brown, 24, Jason Tatum, 22. These are the cornerstones of your franchise. 2 young dudes who are relatively, based on age alone, relatively impressionable. They are coachable, et cetera, et cetera. In fairness to Brad Stevens, although Jason Tatum emphatically and categorically denied this when I asked him, and I interviewed him on Stephen A's World on my SportsCenter with Stephen A. Smith show, the bottom line is you have a lot of people in Boston that have looked at Brad Stevens and wondered if they've turned a deaf ear to what he's saying. We know he knows what he's talking about. We know that he knows the game. We know that from that perspective, he deserves the credibility that he has. But there does come a point in time where you can look at an individual and say, they're just not listening to you anymore. And where I get annoyed, Molly and Max, is we don't hesitate to point that out about players. Well, coaches are human beings too, with a job description. And sometimes that job is your ability to do your job is compromised, not because of lack of knowledge. It's because people are tired of hearing your voice.
I wonder why.
And that's entirely plausible when it comes to Brad Stevens. When you look at these guys, it's about, to me, if you have a Jason Tatum and you have a Jaylen Brown, and they were talking about they're both ball dominant and the ball doesn't move enough and all this other stuff that people were saying. And they brought in Kemba's injuries, and they brought in Hayward's absence, and they brought in Marcus Smart and what role he's going to play, et cetera, et cetera. At some point in time, it does come down to this. Can I have the pulse of my team? Can I get them to maximize their potential, galvanize? Can I galvanize the troops to reach peak potential? And if that answer is questionable with 2 young stars on your squad, you might need to have somebody in there that's a better motivator.
Fair enough. But the question is, does he get a pass? And when I hear that, what I'm thinking is, can I look at the circumstances of this season and the details of what happened and say, that's not on the coach? At least not entirely. Yes, I can. And by the way, we also have to look at Danny Ainge. Trader Danny, right? He's had a lot of talent.
Scared to pull that trigger.
Draft picks, everything, where he's a great GM. And I think Brad Stevens is a great coach, or a very, very good one. They're not perfect. There are better GMs and better coaches. Not many, but there are, I believe. But they're very, very good.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean you can't do better. Danny Ainge, as you said, he's had a lot of potential stuff there to make a championship with. He has failed to do it. Now, is this more on Danny Ainge or Brad Stevens or bad luck or the players? In the hierarchy of those things, I'm not putting Brad Stevens on top. I'm probably putting circumstance on top and then probably Danny Ainge, right? We don't look at the Celtics roster and go, they should win the championship.
No, but you do look at them and say they should have been better than 500. You do look at them and say they should have been one of the top 4 seeds in the Eastern Conference. You do look at them and say, with the 2 young cornerstones of this franchise, as good as they were statistically, there are things that were missing from their game that's about coaching, not about their skill set. You did look at them and say all of those things at some point, some juncture during the season. And as a result of that, all I'm saying is we get to look at Brad Stevens and say, yo, if you ask Brad Stevens right now, could you have done a better job this year? He most certainly would say yes.
Stephen A.
And that's the point.
But that's fair, and I'm not doubting what you're hearing at all whatsoever. I'm just wondering what changed. Why have they tuned him out?
Well, you know what? It does get to a point. Look, come on, y'all. Both of y'all know this. I know this.
What?
We all know this. You get tired of hearing people. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.